All right, how you doing? This is Chapter 10, Fitness Evaluation, Selection, and Administration from the NSCA Essentials of Personal Training book. This is presentation 1 of 5, I believe. So with this, we're going to talk about and go over just the introduction to the chapter and just the purpose of what an assessment is. From the book here, right in the first part of the chapter, we're going to talk about explaining the purposes of different physical assessments and being able to articulate those to a client, evaluate the test's validity and reliability, which those are different terminology that you'll become familiar with, determine the factors that contribute to cardiovascular disease, et cetera, and select appropriate tests for individual clients, which kind of is important when you think about the different populations you might be working with. So with that, the whole purpose behind assessments, it's kind of multifaceted, but part of it is you're trying to gather just some data points to be able to evaluate a client and their overall readiness to be able to participate in an exercise program. Now, your client can be 80 years old, perhaps somebody who had a hip replacement, or it could be an 18-year-old who plays sports. And so the assessment itself takes on different forms and shapes, as you'll see, but it's used for a couple different reasons. And the main one, though, is to gather just baseline data points. And it's also used to help you design some training programs and to come up with some training protocols from your client that be appropriate. And then also, you're using these assessments to be able to create a starting off point, but also have multiple assessments along the path to be able to evaluate progress and performance of the individual. When they talk about baseline data, now the baseline data they talk about, used to compare progress, helps identify strengths and weaknesses, helps you with your programming, also with goal setting, gives you an idea of like perhaps the injuries or contraindications to exercise that your client may have, and also you have a written record, excuse me. And so over here they list this in the book, and they talk about these different functional areas that I kind of consolidated over here to the left-hand side of the screen. But the idea is you're trying to just gather information to evaluate the person in their current state, but also use these data points to be able to evaluate progress and the efficacy of your programming as you go through your workouts with your client. So with program development, now program development, I talk about this in other parts of the class, but there's a specificity that we talk about when we're creating programs for our clients or our athletes. And that specificity is driven by the needs and wants of the actual client. And the client itself can come in any number of different shapes and forms and have different goals and wants. And you have to be able to actually determine what those are and then come up with the programming that's best to fit for the client. And it's an understanding of, knowing the right testing protocols. Perhaps a 5-10-5 shuttle is appropriate for one population, but it's not appropriate for another population. Is the client elderly? Is the client an athlete? Is the client an adolescent or a youth athlete? There's more to this, and there's a certain complexity to it. And you can refer back to chapter 8, but I'll tell you, when you look at your programming and program design, the goal of the program itself should be to support the needs and wants of the client. So I'm going to jump from this and go right into the next presentation.